afternoon, everyone. My name is Conor McCaffrey. I'm the Deputy Head Teacher at Dallow Primary School in Luton, and I'm here today just to talk about our remote learning provision that we offer our children, our families, and to reflect on some of the lessons learned from Lockdown 1 and what we as a school have done to implement some new strategies in order to give our children and our staff a better learning experience this time around. So to begin, just want to briefly give you a little flavour really of our context of our school and some of the issues and the challenges that we face. So we've got 630 children on roll. Dallow Primary School has some of the highest levels of deprivation in Luton. We've got around 80% of pupils that have English as an additional language, and some of these children are complete beginners to English, which presents its own problem. So we really have to utilise our skilled staff throughout the school to help with our translations. The majority of families are from an Asian Pakistani or Bangladeshi background, and our SEND pupils are in line with national average. So thinking back to Lockdown 1, some of the main issues that we recognised quite early on as a school that we needed to address if this were to happen again. First of all, access to technology and devices. And we found a lot of our families just simply didn't have the devices at home in order to do the work that we were asking of them. So when the children returned in September 2019, we surveyed all families. We found out what type of devices they had in the home, whether it be a smartphone, tablet, Chromebook, laptop, whatever it may be, and how many siblings they had within that household, and how many siblings would be sharing that same device throughout the day. The DFE provided us with 51 Chromebooks to support our families. There's a lot more families that needed Chromebooks than 51, so thankfully within our school we have 10 Chromebooks in each classroom. So we've been working our way through the classrooms and getting these Chromebooks out into the community and helping our families. Currently we're on about 120 that we've provided, and still to this day that list is growing. We're still getting requests for more devices, because in some of our families where there are 4, 5, 6 children within that household still only sharing 1 or 2 devices, it's still incredibly difficult for these families to support these children. So where we can, we have these devices in school, so we're just trying to get them out. We're trying to get the children online, we're trying to get them engaged and making it a positive experience. Another issue that we found was teachers, CPD. A lot of the platforms that we're using now are new, and at the time of the very first lockdown we didn't have these up and ready, so what we did is we used the Chiltern Learning Trust and their expertise. Emma Darcy in particular held various Google Meets for our staff to engage them within Google Classroom, doing beginner lessons right up to advanced. And what I can see now as a senior leader looking into the classrooms, the quality of work that our teachers are providing, the range of learning experiences that they're providing for their children using Google Classroom is really, really effective, and it's really inspiring to see. So the Google Classroom is our online platform. Back in Lockdown 1 we used our school website, which, you know, at the time it was effective. We were able to send out links and certain videos, but we feel the offer that we have now is much, much stronger. Another issue that we had back in Lockdown 1 was the students' general level of computing skills. So we made that a high priority in September 2019. All computing lessons had an element of the use of Google Classroom, so children were experiencing logging in, joining classrooms, completing quizzes, things like that, so that if a bubble were to burst or we were to go into another national lockdown, the children had some experience of using Google Classroom within a safe school environment, so that when they're at home they could hopefully apply the skills that they learned in schools to home. Feedback and monitoring was another one that we wanted to think about. Lockdown 1 we didn't really have an effective strategy for feedback and monitoring other than phone calls to the families and the children to see what they were doing, but the offer that we have now is much stronger, and I'll go on to talk about that a little bit later. One thing that we wanted to do as a school was to ensure a sense of normality and structure for the children, so they all have a daily timetable. The curriculum remains the same where possible, so what we would be doing in school we're trying to mirror that remotely. Reward system will all stay in place, and the children absolutely love that, and in assemblies they're rewarded based on the work that they've completed through the week. What we find is really key for us as a school is communication. That cannot be underestimated, and we communicate with our families in a range of ways, whether that be on social media, text messages, parent mails, and also our amazing family workers and support staff helping us with translations. Right from the get-go, our head teacher released a welcome to remote learning kind of video right at the beginning, and within that very first week we had that translated in Urdu and Bengali to try and reach as many families as we could. these images on the right hand side that I'm using are from the Trust, their expectations of what remote learning should look like, an outstanding remote learning provision. We feel that we're meeting those. So remote lessons need to be clear. So in order for them to be clear, we need to have a solid platform to use, which is Google Classroom. The teachers use Loom for their pre-recorded lessons, so they can break down that information, break it into achievable chunks for the students. We do not offer any live lessons. All of our lessons are pre-recorded. We feel that that gives our families greater flexibility, especially in households with more than one child. Not all children will be able to log on at a certain time to complete a lesson, so they can go back, they can rewind, they can use these pre-records to consolidate learning as well. In terms of verbal feedback, we use a Google Chrome extension called Mote, so our teachers can give the children feedback immediately verbally by just holding down a short voice recording, and the children can actually voice record back to the teacher if they want some extra clarification. Remote lessons need to be engaging. We feel it's important that children have opportunities to see and hear their teachers, and they're able to do that on a daily basis in a range of lessons. As we're a three-form entry school, one of the teachers can focus on maths, one can focus on English, and the other one can focus on our foundation subjects. And some year groups have found that they've kept that the same from day one. Others have mixed it around a bit, and you know, the teachers are the experts here, and we're letting them guide us, and because they can see the levels of engagement that they're getting from the children, and if they feel they need to change that, they will. We encourage the children to use some real resources from home to help apply the learning away from the screen. You know, the children have been in front of the screen for so long now, we feel it's important to give them opportunities to apply those skills, especially in maths. Down below there, we've got an example of a child in UIFS using some of his toys for an ordering. We've got a girl here using her Play-Doh, making a stethoscope, learning about people who help us. It's really important to keep it varied. Tasks, competitions, quizzes, we really need to keep that engagement high, and where teachers are monitoring the engagement and they see a little dip, they're really creative at coming up with new ways to engage the children. Remote lessons need to include modelling. On a daily basis, our children would experience high quality explicit modelling and explanations from our teachers. There's no reason why they shouldn't receive it because they're at home. I'm just going to play a very short example here of one of our teachers modelling handwriting in EYFS, linking to phonics. I can play that.
Hello, today I'm going to show you how to write the sound E. Can you say the bouncy sound E? Brilliant, well done. Now first we need to hold our pencil using our perfect pencil grip. So we need to pinch and lift our pencil. Now I have a phrase that's going to help you to write the sound E, and it goes like this. Lead in, lift off the top and scoop out the egg. Let me show you. Start on the line, lead in, lift off the top and scoop out the egg. Let us have another go. Lead in, lift off the top and scoop out the egg. Can you have a go with me this time? Lead in, lift off the top.
And what's so pleasing about that is I know if I went into that teacher's lessons, that's exactly what I would be saying in a normal day today. Read writing, phonics, handwriting lessons. They're getting that same experience that they would do whether they're in school or they're not. So in terms of feedback, we try and stay in line with our feedback and monitoring policy, where we encourage our teachers to give verbal feedback as a first port of call. We feel that this instant feedback is most effective. If some children need individual written feedback and they can understand, they can respond to it, great, and we can use Google Classroom for that. There's an example below. Teachers have found that where there's a common misconception, rather than doing 7, 8, 9, 10 individual comments, that they can just record a 2-3 minute Loom video. And there's an example there of a teacher in year 1. He noticed some misconceptions around the use of a number line in maths, so he was straight on a 2-3 minute video, able to address that misconception very quickly and send that out and ensure that the children are ready for the next lesson. One thing that we did at the end of week 2 is we surveyed our staff in terms of workload, because we're very conscious that this is incredibly difficult for our staff at this time. So if we can support them in any way, we want to do that. And what we find is that the staff were feeling that the feedback and monitoring was unmanageable at some time. So we met with our middle leaders, with our teachers, to clarify expectations, and they're in a much better place now, and they're ensuring that feedback is really rich varied, and the children are actioning it, which is important. So tracking and monitoring engagement. Every lesson of every day is monitored by our staff and our support staff. Non-engaging children have a daily phone call, and that may be from a teaching assistant, a teacher, family worker, admin, or a member of the SLT. We have an escalation tree where it kind of comes up to certain points, and so we think it's important that all members of the school community are a part of this process to help that we are engaging our children. One thing that we're just starting now is that some year groups are trying to seek whole class student voice feedback on how Google Classroom is working. We're trialing this in year 4. We want to see what type of learning the children are enjoying, what they would like to see more of, and what maybe they're struggling with, and what we can do as teachers to adapt our current teaching and learning strategies as we move on throughout this process. I think it's really important that we support our teachers throughout this lockdown more than ever, and the one thing that we can do is just be there to listen and adapt continuously. We have weekly staff briefings where we share a few key messages, but leave it very much open for the staff to share any concerns that they have or any developmental ideas that they would like to share throughout the year, throughout the school. Year groups still have PPA time together where they can plan. Our NQTs have dedicated NQT time. They meet with their mentors on a weekly basis. Teachers have working groups, so in the morning if they're working at home they can just leave a Google Meet on. Teachers are welcome to drop in and drop out. Year leaders lead on that. Year leaders also meet with SLT on a fortnightly basis. And what we are also doing is we're continuing with our ongoing professional development for teachers, which is being modelled on the walkthroughs. So every couple of weeks our teachers are thinking about strategies that they're using remotely now and how they can adapt them in the remote learning environment. And then thinking about everything else that comes into place when the children are at school. You know, what else can we do to try and make this a better experience for the children? And we have wonderful PE staff that have developed online lessons for EYFS Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2, and they're out on a weekly basis. We have music lessons, we've got drumming, singing, recorder lessons all going on throughout the school. SLT are reading stories, we're sharing reward points. We had a reading week a few weeks ago, which was really successful. So there's a range of things that we're doing as a school to make our learning offer really, really effective for our children and for our staff. Finally, I think it's important that our teachers and as senior leaders, we reflect on what we're doing continuously in order to advance this experience for the teachers and for the children. So year groups have been working on a CEF document, they've been grading it, and they've been thinking about what's really working well in their year group and what they need to do in order to improve. The CEF is based on the DFE's expectations for remote learning, the Remote Education Good Practice Guidance, Good Practice Recommendations from the EEF, and advice from other school and trust leaders. So we find this document on the key, we find it really valuable as we move on throughout lockdown about what we can do to enhance this experience for all. And that's everything from me. So I hope you found that useful and interesting from our school perspective. So thank you for listening.